Hey, it's Tuesday, November 21st, and I know in Edmonton it sure does not feel like Edmonton November 21st. Typically, we get snow at Halloween, and that's the start of it, and then snow happens for the following weeks to come. If you've taken a look outside, if you live here in Edmonton, it looks like it's fall, and technically it is fall right now, but it looks like it's September, not the end of November with Christmas around the corner in basically 30 some days. That seems crazy to me. So the real estate market is interesting because it does take off after kind of the seasonal thing. So if it's winter, people tend to not want to look at houses as much because it's cold. Now, the time change and the darkness has definitely impacted people's ability to see the houses in the daylight because it's pretty much dark by 5. And so if you are looking at houses after work, it's going to be pitch black. And so we always recommend either taking some time off during the day or going on the weekends when you can actually see the house in the daylight time. It's important. So, what is going on with the active listings? So, we've dropped a little bit from last week, the last 7 days, but both St. Albert Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, all relatively the same. Sherwood Park and Spruce Grove saw a little bit of an increase in their new listings in terms of what they're seeing for single family homes. And Edmonton and St. Albert and Beaumont saw a decline in the amount of new listings. Now, if you take a look at the pending sales in Edmonton, we had about the same amount of deals written this last 7 days compared to the previous 7 days. And in St. Albert, 8/10, so it's pretty much the same. Sherwood Park, exactly the same. Spruce Grove, almost the same. Beaumont had a bit of an influx in intake there. Now, if you are aware of the Beaumont real estate market, they have a new neighborhood that Sterling is part of. Now, some of those are on MLS and some of them are not. But this stats I'm giving you are all from our MLS system. So this is whatever anyone's selling privately or new build, they don't all get tracked in these numbers, but these are the general resale numbers for single family homes. Now, properties that sold in the last 7 days compared to the 7 days before, the number is dropping because there's not as many deals coming up. Don't forget, there are some deals that go pending, and sometimes they get non-waived, which means the buyers didn't actually go through with purchasing the property. They walked away from it for many reasons. Maybe they couldn't afford it, they couldn't get the financing, the inspection maybe was really poor, and they didn't want to take on all of the work. So in the last 7 days, we saw 138 versus 140, 84. And at Edmonton and then St. Albert, Sherwood Park, and Spruce Grove, all pretty much the same. Now let's take a look at last year. I always find that interesting. So we had 138 sales this year at this week, and last year we had 172. So Edmonton's seen a little bit of a decline compared to last year at this exact week. If you look month over month, year over year, that's a bigger scope. We're just looking every week to kind of see the trends and the patterns, because if you're looking to sell your home right now, you can see the reason why things are taking longer to sell and aren't moving as fast. This explains a lot. Typically in the fall, like anywhere from October to December, are slowest months in Edmonton for sales. And if you take a look at what happened this week compared to last year at this time, typically, like last year was slow, but I mean, we're even slower this year. So it makes a lot of sense if you're trying to sell your house and things aren't moving. There's not a whole lot of single families selling right now, 138 out of all the 2,000 and some that are for sale, right? Like I said, it's just over 2,500 that are for sale, and only 138 sold in the 7 days. Even if they sold, let's say 100 every week times 4, that's 400. That's not even cracking a dent. Now, I know we don't have a ton of inventory to choose from either, but you can see that that's how it impacts it. In the surrounding areas in St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, and Beaumont, all relatively quite similar. You don't see a huge influx. So people always ask, why are you talking about those areas? These areas are close to Edmonton. They're within 15-minute drive. And Edmonton has multiple communities, like hundreds of communities. St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, Beaumont also have communities, but not hundreds of them, because obviously the size of them are smaller. So the numbers of sales you'll see are lower. So if you take a look at those numbers specifically, on Thursdays, we go live and talk about specific neighborhoods. So if you comment and let me know what neighborhoods you want to talk about, we'll talk about the sales that are happening and 20 days is actually really important to take a look at. Sorry, last 20 days. Last 60 days is 2 months. So you want to take a look at the last 2 months of activity. Usually we do 90 days. 60 days is a more accurate kind of smaller bubble because you can imagine it's November right now. If you look at September and October activity, it's going to more dictate November versus looking all the way in August. Now, when you're slowing down and there's less sales to look at, you end up starting to expand that time frame. But then you have to remember the August real estate market is very different than the November real estate market. So if you're looking at your value of your home, the highest point your value is going to look is probably, I would say, in June, because April and May are higher months. So your equity starts to grow because your neighbors are selling for peak money. However, you can see if the market is not continually increasing and it's declining, and you look in June and you say, well, these houses sold for this much money in my neighborhood, it should be worth that. If the market's declining, we can't take that number anymore. We have to discount it a little bit to accommodate for the change in market, and the change in demand is really where it comes from. The buyers dictate how much they want to spend, and the sellers dictate how much they're willing to let it go for. And so truly that's where the value comes from. You can look at the statistics to see what the history is in terms of seller and buyer kind of coming together, where they're at, and then it states the value of that area and that property. And of course, the condition of the home also impacts it. So if you're looking to sell for spring, or I'd say February, March, you want to start planning and giving yourself a heads up, getting the stuff ready right now, because everyone's so busy with all the vacations, the parties, and whatnot. There are things you can do in your home right now to kind of prepare for it. As a buyer, if you're looking to figure out what prices are, the regular prices, especially if you don't live here in Edmonton. We just put out a video last Friday about house prices in Edmonton. So the average price generically of what homes are going for in the city, so that you can kind of gauge, because when people are coming from out of province and they're thinking, 900,000 is a cheap price to buy a house at because you get so much more house here than you do in Toronto or BC. You have to understand that Edmonton doesn't have a bulk of sales there. Edmonton's bulk of sales is 350 to 500. So these sales, if we took a look at the 138 properties that sold this last 7 days, you probably see a bell curve. And the highest bell curve is between the 3 to 500,000, and then it kind of goes down, and the number of sales in the 6, 7, 800, 900 million. They're still happening, but they're a lot less than the bulk of the sales. So if you're looking to move to Edmonton and kind of see if it's for you, you want to focus in on that 350 to 500 price point. If you're looking to sell your house and you're in that price point, those are going to sell quicker as long as you've got the marketing, the pricing properly. If you're in the higher price point, you're going to have to expect it's going to take a while, even if you lower your price. The market is in such a place right now where it's still, though, even if you have an aggressive price, you've got to be really aggressive for it to like move off at this time. Typically when it's snowing and cold, there's less people looking, but because we have no snow on the ground right now, right yet, you still have a chance for it. Now, the next 2 weeks, I will not be here updating you on Tuesdays. Thursday is my last neighborhood update for the week. We will have videos on Fridays, but I am on vacation, so there will be no live updates until December 12th, when I'll be coming live from New York, but I will be talking about Edmonton's real estate market. Make sure you comment if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you guys soon.